Oh. Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of Super Festival 2023. I'm your host, Jordan Sparks, Director of Technology at the Hand Eye Society, and my body is Reggie for another exciting day at Super Festival. How about you? As usual, we'll have several guests today from across the industry share their wisdom and perspectives with you to make us all better game developers. Don't forget, we also have the Super Festival website where you can find the stream schedule as well as over 50 unique indie games that we're showcasing across our event. You can also check out our special Super Festival game world where you can interact with other attendees and see how the world changes and evolves throughout the week. Before we get started, I'd like to give a big shout out to our supporters and sponsors who make Super Festival possible. Thank you so much to Ontario Creates, the Toronto Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council, as well as game studios Clever Endeavor, Mighty Yell, and Bancy Co. for all their amazing support. Well, that's it for me. We got some exciting talks lined up, so it's time to get our game on and enjoy Super Festival. I'll see you after the show.
device you're using to control the simulation is interfacing with the computer via different analog and digital input signals. Each electronic component embedded in the gamepad controls or is controlled by some piece of code in the game engine. A small plastic button adjusts the speed of the airplane. A little rotating potentiometer, the direction in which the plane is turning. There's one particular element embedded in the joystick that I want to draw your attention to. It is a small DC motor, the weight attached to it slightly off-center. When voltage is applied to this motor, something happens.
Glorbo Nom Nom Bindi Gloop Loopron. Glorbo Nom Nom Bindi Gloop Loopron. Glorbo Nom Nom Bindi Gloop Loopron.
Crisscross, crash, crisscross. Crease, crunch, crunch. Crisscross, crash, crisscross. Crease, crunch, crunch. Crisscross, crash, crisscross. Crease, crunch, crunch.
On the floor, got a 30-point lead and a minute left. Queens on the team in real life, not just on the internet. We working hard for the top spot, just watch it manifest. I'm a rose and a king at the same time, that's what a woman is. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we wanted, we can do it. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we wanted, we can do it. All straight, no sweat. 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 All straight.
Hi, my name is Sean Alexander Allen, and thanks for coming to this talk. It's very experimental. What indie games can learn from indie rap. I've been an independent game developer for over 11 years now, but I've also been hanging out around the indie rap space for basically as long. And this talk's basically, a bit of what I learned being around all this spaces. While I got started in games retail, I was also an unpaid moderator at IGN and aspiring games journalist, a lot of things. But this is where I got my official, professional start, where I started getting paid. Was working at Rockstar, doing trailer work for all these games. And something that was very interesting was I got to work on these games, Beta Raider, which was with Timbaland. which I really wish I would have taken more advantage of being that close to that game, because I got the game, didn't really learn it that well, but now I'm a lot more interested in it. And working on Chinatown Wars was really interesting. The first time we did it, it was on DS, but then when it came out on the PSP, they made a version of the theme song that had Ghostface and Doom, and I think it was like a year or two before I really got into Doom. But I was really sad that I didn't get to be close to any part of these games other than working on trailers for them. So after I left Rockstar, I spent the last decade or so working on Retro Beatdown City, and since then we've been able to put out the Ultra Remix update, and which was like triple the content, and the UN Trouble prologue, which just kind of a bit of a jokey prelude to the game. But working on these games, we also got to work on some bespoke rap tracks, because over the time while I was working on these games, I was hanging out with independent rap artists, going to their shows, getting to know them, getting to see how much they like. A lot of people like video games. Like, one of the things that I find it interesting is the quickest way to the heart of a lot of these folks is if you tell them you work on video games, they're all like, "Oh, what do you do? Because that's cool. I'm interested in that." So that's opened a lot of conversations. We worked on 2 tracks total, but we have some remixes on it. So we got to have Open Mike Eagle on both tracks. 2 Mellow took our beats by Inverse Phase, the musician on the game, and make beats out of them. And we got Mega Ran on the second track, and then we had Show You Suck on both tracks, but also with Steve Rydell, the Hood Internet, together as air credits on the second track to make like this really transformative remix, which was just super cool. And it was really interesting because, like, I don't know, I was doing an experiment of, we have this our game is heavily inspired by, like, hip-hop culture in general, and it we wanted to basically express that through our marketing, so that's why we worked with folks. And I took some time out, made like a blaxploitation era album cover and everything, and so that paid off, actually, because like a lot of people who like the rap artists and the musicians, they were like, "Oh man, I want to check out this game," and people who checked out the game's beats, they were like, "Oh man, who are the people doing this stuff?" So that's basically to my heart, is I want to be able to work on this overlap of cultures, because we see, like, hip-hop loves video games, right? Like, as I was saying before, but I just got to give a quick shout out to Pink Navel with this latest album, with Kenny Siegel also. This uses like Wind Waker aesthetics, has like a Zelda, has a gold cassette that like, I don't often buy cassettes, but I had to buy that cassette, because just like the vibes were, they worked with me extremely hard, because like I love Super Nintendo, I love Zelda, I love Super Mario World, everything about it, and the album just, I don't know, something about it clicks super heavily, and so this is what I see. Like, I see the overlap of the culture so much, but I see the culture, I see games in themes in albums, but I don't see the cultural aesthetic output coming through into games that often. So want to just kind of quickly go over like what this talk's going to be about. Big part of it is how indie rap has affected me as a game creator, over the last decade or so. So it'll be part creativity, part how to handle yourself, how you exist, and part business. Let's talk not about it's not about rap in games, especially not this. But I've already, the thing is, like, it's not just about rap aesthetics in games. It's because I've actually done that conversation. Got to talk with great folks, Mega Ran, Samus, Open Mike Eagle, and Davion Gooden, who's working on the upcoming She Dreams Elsewhere. And that was a great conversation. I just want to have more of those conversations, but that's not what this is about. So here's our outline. Audience of 10,000. Indie versus Underground, the Misunderstood mixtape, mastering, itch.io could be the next Bandcamp for indie games, merch and fan engagement, and labels and discovery. And, what I just want to say is, these are all new concepts. This is not a blueprint for the future. These are just like kind of vibes that I get from things. It's none of this is an answer to anything. This is me just trying to put ideas out there. I'm going to have some opinions. Some of those opinions may not jive with yours. If you don't agree with me, that is 100% fine. Like, I'm not saying I'm 100% right on anything. Feel free to, if you want to ever talk about it, try to talk with me in person, because, over social media, stuff doesn't work. So, I'm at GDC, I'm at events, so if you ever want to talk about stuff, feel free to. Or if you want to, I don't know, if you host a podcast and you ever want to talk about this, that'd be cool too. But yeah, don't try to get a hot take off of Twitter. That's not happening. So, it's 2013. 10 years ago. I'm about a year out from AAA. And it was a pretty wild year. At IndieCade in 2013, I gave a talk called How Urban Black and Latino Cultures Could Be the Next Frontier of Indie Games. And in my findings, I couldn't help going back to hip-hop and its beginnings, and basically how there was this, like, hip-hop and video games kind of popped up around the same time, like in the late 60s, early 70s, and then they just did this. Except, like, this side, hip-hop, like, really is into, like, the concept of games, and then video games just goes and keeps going farther and farther away. And something that I came about in my findings was games have a culture problem that, it's one of the reasons why, like, I think hip-hop, like, why these people are not in games, even though they love games. So, this is a talk that was like an hour-long talk that I gave, still about thinking about it, but that's not what this talk is about. It's just what happened. That was happening around the same time. Yeah, it's still like this. This is what I think, like, the way the industries are. But during that same year, I stumbled on Run the Jewels, which is this group that was created via, like, an Adult Swim executive. Adult Swim, the channel and culture entertainment element, not the games element, which is a good other example. Like, their games division was always super different than their culture and TV and output division. So hip-hop vets LP and Killer Mike were introduced, and I was writing for Unwinnable back in 2012, and I wrote a piece about the difficulties of being indie, which kind of brought me into the fold of Unwinnable, and I stumbled on Killer Mike's 2012 album Rap Music that was produced by LP, about a year before Run the Jewels' first album came out. And the next year, they debuted as this group that was basically like they had always been here. The thesis is they're the best. If you don't agree, they'll rob you and leave you laying in the gutter. Run the Jewels. Like, they had a song 36-inch chain, like walk around like you got an invisible 36-inch chain, like you're the shit. I just thought that was always very interesting that's how they came. But I thought it was also interesting that they came from being independent rappers, despite Killer Mike's adjacency to Outkast. He always actually talked on his albums about the pride in being independent. LP is interesting because he's like this pioneer of indie underground rap. He had like this less than mainstream style as a producer that, brought into Run the Jewels. Very dense lyricist. Also, opinionated in like a good way. Let his opinions be known. And he was also a founder of Def Jux, which was an underground independent rap label that was, an alternative to other labels, even other independent labels of the time. He went to go found his label because of being treated poorly at other labels, and he wanted just to do best by the people around him And, unfortunately, when iTunes hit, he basically lost his whole business. Before I go on, I just want to give some shout-outs to some pieces of some podcasts, basically. Like, I don't listen to podcasts that much, but these podcasts, the What Had Happened Was podcast, is pretty amazing because you get to listen to some very prolific, very, very prolific people, creators like Prince Paul, LP, Questlove, and as they talk, and Dante Ross, as they talk about building their careers and building the industry in a lot of ways, and building their groups, building albums, all these things. And I just think that it's super interesting to listen to another medium discuss how their stuff came about, because I actually, I feel like we could talk more about that in games, although games are still pretty young by comparison. Like, independent games, especially in the new renaissance of indie games that's been in the last 20 years or so, still feels, I guess, young in comparison. There's other podcasts, excuse the low-res Call Out Culture cover, but this Call Out Culture podcast featured Open Mike Eagle, talking with all the hosts of that podcast about the new renaissance of indie rap, which actually touched on a lot of stuff that I'm going to be touching on here. And Open Mike Eagle's Secret Skin, where he talks to a lot of people about, again, their careers, but just in a one-off phases than What Had Happened Was. So, these were just really interesting because it's like Mike just wants to sit down and talk to people about their ideas, and then people come to Mike being like, so what do you think about the way indie rap's going right now? Because he's been doing this for, over 10 years as well. So, these are just all very helpful. I recommend listening to them because, I just hear a lot of overlap in these podcasts to even my own experience in games a lot of time. And it's a little hard to put two and two together, but it just keeps me going. It's very influential. Speaking of influential, gonna go to the first part, act like you've got an audience of 10,000. Back in 2013 also, still, I became aware of a rapper called Show You Suck. I became aware of him because of Twitter. It's why Twitter, I still think, at least was a very magical thing. I saw him reaching out to LP on Twitter because I think LP, Run the Jewels, was having a free show in New York in December of 2013, and Show You Suck was like, "Oh, I'll be out there too. You want to come to my show?" And then I was like, "Who's this guy?" I checked out his work, and I saw all this amazing catalog of work that he had. All these articles written about him. He made a Super Street Fighter 4 track. Or track called Super Street Fighter 4. I saw him tweeting at the Fader, which is a big label culture company, basically daily. He had this following, and all the articles written about were all asking him about his references and using trap music to talk about depression, all sorts of stuff, for the One Man Pizza Party albums, which a one-man pizza party is eating pizza by yourself, which is kind of depressing. And, I just thought, it was cool. It was okay, cool. This, artist with, this body of work, a vision behind what he was doing. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go out to this New York show. This was actually, I was working on my Kickstarter, so I was barely sleeping at the time. And I went to see Show You Suck. And when I got there, the bad thing was there were 10 to 15 people in the crowd. There were some heavy hitters in the crowd, like Mr. Motherfucking Esquire, who Show You Suck worked with, and he told me that LP was in the audience as well. So that was cool. You had some big people, but the thing that I took away from that whole concert, besides it being a great concert, was that I didn't get the vibe that there were 15 people out there. I got the vibe that I was in an audience of 10,000, because Show You Suck comes out, and everybody that was with him comes out, and they're like, "Everybody put your hands up!" It was just this unwavering energy that just basically gave me, you know, I was working on my Kickstarter, and I was like, this is like the thing where you're having to ask people for lots of money, and you have to basically act like, you know, act like you're going to be successful. You have to promote yourself. You have to bug outlets constantly. You have to be positive about your work, your audience, keep going for it. But that was one of those moments that really, I think, changed the way that I looked at showing my work off. Like, I was just like, okay, well, if nobody replies to this thing, keep going. I think that's just important for, like, you know, indie games it's a hard space, right? So now jumping into murky waters, indie versus underground. You know, in music, we have all sorts of arguments about this and that. Like, you know, when it gets to rap, it gets muddy because rap is filled with, like, so many personalities, styles, so many things that you can get into arguments about. Like, what is rap? What is pop? What is X, Y, or Z? Like, what is the new version of rap versus what is this? And, you know, it's such a multi-tiered genre, despite having this, like, just, it's rap, it's hip-hop at the top. And then we also have seen, like, these issues with, like, huge artists not being able to sell out stadiums and then canceling their shows and their tours, that people are like, why is that happening? And then there's, you know, the idea of, like, independent rap, and then there's underground rap. And, you know, being independent, which is, like, not on a big label, is different than underground. Being underground, you could have an album on a big label, and even if it's not technically an independent record, and you could still be underground. I would say, like, Wu-Tang is always, like, a very underground group, just no matter where they are, because they were never all about, like, commercial success. They were like, we're going to do the best thing that we're going to do, but it's still our thesis, or still our production, it's still how we want it to sound. Because, you know, at the end, underground is just not really focused on the mainstream appeal. It's focused on, like, who you are. It's focused on, like, I don't know, it's focused on creating your art for the sake of creating your own art, not necessarily just for creating it just so everyone can listen to it. Like, you want a lot of people to listen to it, obviously, but I don't know, it's like you're not shaving off the edges to make your stuff, like, more palatable. You're not trying to make boring hooks that, like, not boring, but you know what I mean, like, big hooks that necessarily that are, yeah, just more popular, but not necessarily like what you feel inside. You know, they talk about how AI is going to change the way music is, or Ace of Base is a good example where they would make songs that played well in the club, and then they would put lyrics to them afterwards. So it's you know, that's like one way of doing it, and I think underground is more like, I'm going to make things the way I make them, and they're going to be great, and they're going to be good, but and you're gonna build your audience. You're gonna have, like, these, like, really hardcore fans that come to your shows. They buy your merch. They follow everything you do, which has its ups and downs, because then there's this parasocial relationship that comes with it, where people think they're your friends, this and that. But, you know, the big ups are that your audience really cares about you, what you do, your success. Versus mainstream artists who may have a lot of plays on Spotify, but not a fan base that cares about your tour, right? Like, they might like your single, but they might not care about you. Just, like, I think a good example, and this is not a quality thing, this is just, you know, Megan Thee Stallion just released her new single. It's on an independent label, but it's definitely not underground, right? Like, Megan Thee Stallion's a very mainstream artist, versus Psalm 1, who I'd say a bit more underground rapper. Another person I love her music tremendously, but yeah, it's just different. They come out on independent labels, but one is just like Psalm 1's just here to do Psalm 1, essentially, right? Like, now looking at indie versus underground games, you know, we talk a lot about budget, indie this, blah blah blah, lower budget, like AAA and AA. There's flowcharts now. Like, we're seeing an independent game award we're seeing a game that's up for an independent game award that is absolutely not by an independent company, that was made by a company that makes millions of dollars with tons of people. And so, just in general, you have all these problems. And so, it's just exhausting, right? Like, but I guess people want it or need it for the sake of festivals or award shows. But, you know, fuck that, right? Like, I don't think it's about that. It's about intent. It's about ethos. And, you know, I think it's about the mainstream aim for a game that is what it's important to look at. Like, if we are looking at, like, categorization. Because, you know, you'd say Sea of Stars, El Paso Elsewhere are the most independent games. And I'd say, you know, El Paso Elsewhere is the biggest game that Strange Scaffold has made. But Sea of Stars is a game that's meant to be as appealing to everybody as possible. Not a bad way. It's just scattershot. It's kind of like, hey, everybody, here's this, like, ode to one of the most popular games out there, right? And El Paso Elsewhere is, like, a game made by, like, Xalavir and his team for Xalavir and this team. You know, you gotta, like, neo-noir, you gotta, like, third-person shooters. You might really want to have liked Max Payne, the first one, way back in the day, like, a very specific subsect of people. And rap, right? Like, because the game has a rap soundtrack that some people don't fuck with, some people do. And if you don't, you know, boo-hoo, right? Like, I don't, like, who cares? And so that's, like, kind of look at it as, like, I think, like, you know, El Paso Elsewhere is definitely a more underground game than Sea of Stars, which is an indie game. And one thing I'll say is this isn't about accessibility, because it's not about, like when you say mainstream, I'm not saying, like, does the game play, is it handled well by people? It's more like, yeah, the intent, the vibes of the project. Because that's part of the problem with this whole, like, people looking at a pixel art game as an indie game, even if it's made by a multi-million-dollar company, is that that is absolutely not an independent company, because pixel art doesn't make an indie game. The personal, like, the limits, whatever, right? But then when you start looking at it, I just think I like to look at, like, underground games. Like, another good example of an underground game is Validate by Veritable Joy. It's very antithetical to, like, typical VNs. It really it goes in with purposely focused intent, like black and brown characters. It's very queer focused. It's not about fitting into the genre in any way, shape, or form. None of the marketing was for that. People got turned off by some of the marketing because, you know, they were like, they had, like, the archetypal, like, the one white person if it got to, like, to a stretch goal in Kickstarter, like, all these funny things that were, you know, not about garnering mainstream appeal. And, you know, I think, again, intent is important. So, the misunderstood mixtape. Mixtapes and rap are music, like, are these labors of love. They are complete efforts. They have a potential harshness to them. Oftentimes, they might be better than the subsequent studio albums because of that freedom that comes with making them. They aren't meant to be commercial projects in a lot of ways, and they're supposed to basically show your full potential as a creator. With that in mind, many of these efforts sample whatever, and because they're just not meant to be sold, they're just meant to be distributed for free. And, you know, like, these are some of my favorite albums. Like, I think Blue Chips Volume 2 from Action Bronson is still, like, my favorite album of his ever. Also, like, like, no one's gonna be able to license Ronald McDonald to pull a gun on the cover of a legit album. And so I think that stuff, you know, it's just interesting because it creates, they create these pieces that couldn't normally exist under a typical commercial environment, but they're very creatively free. But they're an album. They're an album that's super interesting. In games, I think mixtapes are often looked at as, like, these collections of stuff. And they come in a couple of different stuffs. Like, the games might be experiments, undercooked games to be given out, unfinished Game Jam games, like whatever put together to make a mixtape, which again, I don't really understand that. Or you get something like what's pictured here, which is just like a bunch of games on a USB thing that looks like a cassette, and I don't really understand why you'd use like, I mean, maybe I think it's using it in like the sense of like you made a mixtape for somebody, like recording various different songs, but still, it's like I don't know, games are not songs, like, and so it's like so what I think, like the way looking at like mixtapes, looking at DJ Hannibal Royce, I don't know if I have the audio for this. Let's see. Oh no. Well, yeah, I don't know if the audio is going to record for this, but you know, I just think he's working on these Mugen characters, and it's you know, Drake, Scorpion Drake, you know, very funny double entendre because it's Scorpion's character sprite, both Drake's Scorpion album head, and he plays basketball. And then you got like a pair of Timberlands, right, that throw out boots, that throw out buses, throw out dice, fighting in front of like, I don't know. This is what I believe a mixtape game is. It's using whatever you want to make something really cool that basically shows, like, I don't know, this kind of reverence for game making, this reverence for culture, this reverence for lots of things. Then you also have, you know, my friend Akuma made a game called Freakin' Weekend, which I should have added some GIFs of, but it's basically a game that's supposed to be a mixtape. It's a mix of stories that play. I can't find. There's a whole talk about it on GDC on YouTube, but it's about basically making a bunch of short games that tell an overarching story, which definitely feels the closest to like making a mixtape. Like, it's this thing that is a collection of your art that's personal, as opposed to just disparate bunch of whatever being put together. And I think that's cool. So, porn to mastering. I'm gonna kind of be in this kind of overlap of the last topic. So in the Call Out Culture podcast, they were talking a bit about putting together albums, and Mike brought up that, you know, you can get kind of complacent and just start making a thing where it's like, oh, you got your beats, you got your raps, that's a song. And then looking at other people making creative projects and seeing, oh, that people are putting a lot of effort into the mastering process, and the mastering in that, like working on true production, like making sure the levels are there, really trying to bring out something else out of the tracks, which can only be done through mastering. It's making it more compelling and make it better, making it a cohesive experience. They also brought up like kind of like the when you do all your stuff, how like a lot of times people who make creator-made comics their lettering might just come out poorly because, you know, you could be good at drawing, you could be good at storytelling, not necessarily good at lettering. Like, lettering is its own skill in comics. Interesting thing in games is that a lot of times, like, actually, like, small groups in games can do a lot of this stuff, come up with a lot of the end game stuff. Like, I think, you know, working on your game feel, working on making sure the aesthetic is cohesive, making sure all this stuff works, making sure that you have all your options in place, making sure that you have all these things. But the thing that often doesn't come from like games is like when we work on Game Jam games and we say, hey, go play my Game Jam game. And a lot of times I try, and I'm just like, this doesn't function really, so like I don't want to give it too much time. And I think like game jams are interesting. They're really interesting in the context of the jam, but I personally feel like most of the time they're not really that interesting. But it would be cool if we saw like folks just outside of that 48 hours or that 2 weeks, take some time, or if you have time during it, make sure you can, restart your game easily. Make sure your game has a beginning, middle, and end. Make sure the feel is right. Make sure this and that. I think that for student games also, like, cutting down the scope, making sure that it feels good instead of trying to do 10 things, like try to get a few things right and make sure that they're working right. Like one of the first Game Jams games I worked on, we had it was fine, people liked it at the Game Jam, was written up, which was surprising to me, but like the thing that we did is we worked on it for a few weeks after, just to give it an actual end goal, some part where we just inversed the game and created a different state of playing it. We gave it a few options, and there you go. That was a thing that we could put out on the App Store. But like, putting that game jam out on the as it was when we finished just wouldn't have been acceptable. One of the best examples of mastering in a game, taking something from mixtape form, putting it into mastered album form, is this Adventure Time game that JW and Co. worked on that turned into Minute. And because it had the Minute concept, and I actually really liked that game back in the day. But obviously, because it was for an Adventure Time game jam, so that's why they were using Adventure Time assets. And then the fact that it turned into a full game, and I also really like the full game, and JW and Co. they're really good at and making sure that game feels really good from the very beginning of it. So I don't know if it's a good game. If you can find the Game Jam game, I recommend checking it out and checking out the differences. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, actually. We don't have a Bandcamp of games. We have itch.io, and it's not Bandcamp of games. When you even go to the websites, I've been getting more and more into Bandcamp these days, and, I have a project that was up on itch. I kind of took it down for a bit because it was just kind of more hassle than it was worth. I buy stuff on itch a lot of the time, mostly because people are putting out, free assets and whatever, but I really don't know how to find anything on itch, and it's never really 100% clear to me, what's going to be super interesting or relevant to me. It kind of feels, I don't know, it feels very much like Steam, but without, the similar algorithm to recommend things to me. But, I wish there were more, editorial. On Bandcamp, you go to Bandcamp, and then there's editorial, and then they're telling you, oh, this is the album of the day, this is a list of the best this is a list of the best that, this is a list of the best that. And this gives me some insight into, this is how this album was made, this is what happened with this person, this is an interview with these group, this is what was the best of this month, this was the best of this week, etc., etc. But on itch, it's there's just this, and then there's games. I mean, then they show me a lot of games that I'm not super interested in, which, again, is super annoying. I did really like that Bases Loaded game. I actually clicked on it because I was like, Bases Loaded? This is, it was mostly... it plays really well. It does all this cool stuff. But I, stumbled on it by accident. But I don't know, if there was, a thing, the best, sports games that are not, sports games, then I click on that link and I read about them. That might get me into finding these things easier. So, that's something that kind of leads to this also. Merch and fan engagement. Bandcamp allows artists to do all sorts of things, you can sell your whole catalog for a price, and you can sell merch on your Bandcamp page. Merch is the lifeblood of many musicians, but I continually read that merch for games folks isn't really a moneymaker for independent game devs. and I just have to kind of wonder why. Like, I don't know, I was just seeing recently folks like Backwoods Studios, like Arm & Hammer, they with Fat Possum, they just put up these bundles for the game and these cassettes and these CDs, and they're gone. They're out. Like, the fan base was rabid. They bought all the stuff. Like, t-shirts are gone. Like, within a very short amount of time, they sold their merch. They bring merch on them on tours, and then they make sure that people get that stuff. And, the closest thing to touring for us, like game devs, are like PAX and all that stuff. And so that's kind of how I think about it. Like, one question I just have to ask, like, I'm not saying Fangamer, Sanshi, or the Yeti, or whatever are bad. I'm just saying, like, we go to them, and those are, like, the people that's who distributes, like, 90% of the stuff. Then we kind of, like, at the smaller level, the more underground people, have to distribute the stuff ourselves, but we don't really have, like, a space to do it. We can make our Shopify pages, and, those work, but it'd be really cool, right, if we had that Bandcamp, if itch.io had... They let you sell your t-shirts there. If they just, I don't know, if it was like more of a place to send audience, because like Steam, I send people to Steam because you want Steam to have like the algorithm, you want the algorithm to bubble up, and you want the bubble up to keep getting people to buy your thing. And because Itch doesn't really offer that algorithmic placement, and it doesn't really have the audience there, that means that, like, you send people to the place where it's even more tied off, and then it's like, then you have to go to places like Fangamer, Sanshi. They all have really cool stuff, and then it's like this place that you really want to get into, but then, it's like, then you're fighting all these other brands on their site for their stuff. It's right, it's like, how do we do this better? And it's something I don't know. I bring t-shirts around, and people really like our t-shirts, and that's cool. But I still haven't really figured out how to make that like a doable thing, because if you spend a few $1,000s on a booth and you sell $1,000 worth of shirts, it's like you still out a few $1,000s for the booth. So these are things I'm just trying to figure out. Have not figured out and I don't know if these folks could help us. I don't know how we do it. I'm curious. One thing I think about, more labels, and this is going to be like the last thing, in like independent rap, and there's like a lot of labels, some of these don't, like Def Jux is not around anymore. Open Mike Eagle talked about the Def Jux to Backwoods Studios pipeline, essentially, like the vibe that went on. Like a lot of these places gave people, early, like you see a lot of albums that came from them, or they're still doing it with folks. Just like working to get these albums out, like Fake 4 just put out like, Video Dave's album, and that did exceptionally well. And you seem like the steps of a person's career. Backwoods has like an amazing catalog of just selling out vinyls for all the artists as they're coming up on it, and that's, that just shows that, like, being together can help a lot. And so Mike, you also brought up the fact that, like doing his own artist-driven label, Auto Reverse, that like trying to release Video Dave's album. Granted, it was in 2020, same time we released Treachery Beatdown City, and you release it and it could be hard to break through. It was also a specific time of the year that was hard to break through. But I think artist-driven labels is a good idea. It's just the thing is, a lot of the artists who try to do these driven labels don't exist, don't have enough money, really, don't have enough money or resources. In games, we have these game studio-driven labels. I tried to do, like, some publishing myself. Strange Scaffold did something similar. We got bigger groups like Finji, like Serenity Forge, Brace Yourself, but then you see, like, some of these companies getting, like, hit with massive layoffs, or Finji, like Finji, I think can take on like one title at a time. Like, I think we need to figure out a way to, I don't know how we do, again, this is another, like, I don't know how, but I feel like if we look close enough, the problem with the new Challenger thing is I don't have many people, and like I was obsessed, still working on an update for my game while I'm trying to put out another project, so that makes it, kind of difficult to pay as much attention as I would like to the other project, like Don't Give Up. But, you know, I still think it got a lot of views that it wouldn't have gotten had I not helped with the publishing on Switch. So, yeah, the thing is, I think, like, something that would be interesting is if we could see more successful indies bringing on other people. And something I do say is, because, like, again, Open Mike Eagle talked about how, the thing that actually he believes helped, you know, with, if an interesting, like, look at, like, Video Dave's album that came out during the pandemic, like the initial pandemic, didn't do like what they wanted it to do. He was trying to publish it, but then Open Mike Eagle put out his component system with the Auto Reverse album, which had Video Dave on it a lot, and then he comes out with his album on Fake 4, and that immediately has a raised profile, right? And I would like to see, because like in indie games, we see a lot of like Among Us is the game everybody wants to get on their. It's kind of like the Billy Woods feature. Everybody wants to get like Among Us in their game because they think it's gonna like drive sales or something. I'm not 100% sure. Because I've thought about it, like what do we do? How do we get that going? But I think, and conversely, what we need to start seeing is we need to start seeing other studios that work on projects, like bringing up other artists, like bringing up other games, like figuring out how to tie in games that aren't necessarily like that. Because I see like so many Shovel Knight like overlap, like cameos, and so many cameos from all these different games. And it'd be cool if we saw like cameos from things that weren't out yet, and like saying, hey, like we're coming out in this thing later. Like that would be a bit more interesting, I think, and that might again be able to uplift the like profile of other projects to maybe help games do a little better in the future. Like if they could ride the coattails of a bigger company and not necessarily be published by the other company, because, you know, like the publishing thing takes money, takes time, takes all this stuff, but potentially putting someone on in your game and like or I don't know, remixing other games. I'm very curious to see like just this whole subject, like listening to them talk about this on the Call Out Culture podcast, really made me think about and just seeing like Backwood Studios and how everybody functions makes me think a lot about, you know, what can we do for upcomers to get them that might not be seen by our fan bases. How do we get them seen other than just putting them in an email? So that's kind of my highly experimental talk with some, you know, some thoughts of some things. I hope this, if anything, I hope you just get like this inspiration to think a little differently about games. I think indie games, you know, we don't have it solved. The indie apocalypse was something that people talked a lot about, and while the indie apocalypse was happening, I was sitting here listening to, I was going to rap shows, right, and seeing these folks like who are putting their stuff out on SoundCloud, putting their stuff out on Bandcamp, putting their stuff out in all these free spaces. Spotify, even, it's technically free, right? Like, you sort of make money, but you sort of don't, right? Like, you know, we put out a song like the Beatdown City rap song that did like close to 200,000 streams, and, you know, paid back maybe $1,000. I don't know. Like, you know, we spent more money on the track making it than we got paid for it. So, you know, it's just important, I think, to look at just how are other people doing it? How are people that are like wading in much murkier waters still staying around and still staying relevant? And hopefully, I think just talking about it more. I don't think there's like a rubric that says this is how you do this thing, because it's still very new. But hopefully this is helpful to just getting that concept thought about. Thank you. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Sean AA. I'm New Challenger, newchallenger.com, beatdowncity.com. Those are where we are. So thank you. Have a great rest of Super Festival.
Revolution! Untelevised tonight, cause it's money bag news with the lies you like. Look at the bad news fighting on a Friday night. If you call it bad news, you're right. I'm providing the coverage for once, cause I'm tired of rubbish. And my folks getting wise to the lies they publish. Conflicted interests, some conundrum. They run from the source where the funding comes from. You know what really grinds my gears? When the president disappears. Ain't nobody saying shit is weird. We gon' make it all crystal clear with baseball bats, whips, and spears. I got the key to the city, can beat down. Rage unlimited, reach down. I'm standing on mine, 2 feet down. We should meet now. Brawl to a pull apart. Mess around there, find out Boulevard.
Temps over average, UVs melt through the plastic. Bring umbrellas for the acid. Aircraft gonna get bumpy through the clouds. If you kill for the ticket, make that seatbelt fasten. Full metal jackets, headphone standard. When the hail drops, it's gonna make a lot of racket. Full metal shelter, Wi-Fi standard. When the planet drops, it's gonna cause a lot of damage. Stay hydrated if you can't afford it. Stay dangerous if you can't avoid it. Global getting warm, just the old annoyance. Cash out or you might get voided.
Peggy 3.
Girls on the floor got a 30-point lead and a minute left. Queens on the team in real life, not just on the internet. Yeah. We working hard for the top spot, just watch it manifest. I'm a rose and a king at the same time, that's what a woman is. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we wanted, we can do it. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we wanted, we can do it. All straight, no sweat. 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 All straight.
Ashley, and this workshop is going to be an introduction to screensavers. The workshop is intended for all audiences, meaning players, developers, designers, software artists, and generally anyone who's using a computer. It's going to be focused mostly on making screensavers for Windows, because it's the easiest one to make them for, and it's the one I'm going to be demonstrating. But otherwise, are also going to be mentioned, so if you're using something else, you're going to have pointers towards how you can make them. The plan is to talk about why I think they're neat and how you could be using them in your creative projects or in your life in general. Then we're going to make one on the spot. No code knowledge is necessary. I'll talk about that in a second. And then I'll talk about more advanced ways of making them. I'll talk about design considerations when making screensavers, some other uses for them, and give you a lot of ideas and pointers towards what other types of screensavers you could be making and where you could start making them and what kind. Start off with, I guess, a short introduction. I go by Ashley, she, they. I'm mostly known as Ash K, and I sometimes post as SysAsh. What I do is mostly small indie games and just various toys, tools, generative art. A lot of it's not really games, and I can't really call them that, and I think that's part of why screensavers appeal to me as a format. Recently, I've had like a small screensaver obsession for about a year. Started with the ambient play system stock, and then in Paradise we discussed it a lot, and it ended up being kind of like a local conversation topic, and we ended up making a collab about them, where basically a bunch of game developers made screensavers in their game engines of choice and then compiled them. And this is the result of that. I've made a few myself, including some of the ones here, but my main idea for the stock is to show that it's not really anything magical and that you can just make one and there's nothing special about them. If you're on Windows, you should out right now, find an exe that, when run, would spark joy. Ideally, would be small, would launch in full screen, and ideally would be self-contained, meaning the exe can be moved around on its own without needing another folders of files or other similar stuff that would clog up a lot of space. But the main part is it should just be something fun that'll make you smile. If you don't do this, you're not going to be able to follow along, but it's not a big deal. It's going to be easy to remember everything I say. Yeah, to start off with, I'll talk about why I think they're neat. Mostly, I like them from the perspective of creating coding, and it's just there's very small projects that can be self-contained, and the nature of a screensaver kind of implies a limited scope by how they're interacted with it. So you're not going to have long play sessions, and it's not going to be like something massive. You can make one in pretty much an evening. Also, there's no imposed structure. As I mentioned before, I've made generative art, art toys, text editors that play special effects when you type, and the kind of freedom that the lack of expectations of what a screensaver even is allows is really fun in that regard to me. Also, they can be used for practicing game dev. If you want to make just UI experiments, you can make a very fancy looking hacker UI for your screensaver. Or if you want to just make some special effects, you can just make pretty special effects and then have something pretty after you're done. the most important part of the screensavers as creative coding format for me is that after you're done, you're gonna have this thing as a reminder of what you did for the next day or until you switch it out, which is gonna be a very powerful reminder and a motivator to do more of it. And I think the most important part of doing small creative projects like that is motivating yourself to keep going and improving afterward, instead of just abandoning them out of despair or lack of faith in your own abilities. The design aspect of screensavers is also interesting to me because they're just a very unique format for players to interact with. They're approached by players with a very different mindset from most games and in a very different context from most games. And I think the specific details of how that happens are ready for exploration because screensavers have been out of the zeitgeist for quite a while, and yet you still came to this talk because they're an interesting concept and people are curious about them. And yet none of my peers are running screensavers or making them, and I think I would like to change that. They're also just frivolous software. I like it when an app is not like exactly a game and doesn't demand your full attention, and even maybe does something nice in the meantime or productive, but at the same time isn't as serious and sexless as a lot of other software that has specific purposes. And lastly, they're just something you could have in your life for fun. They can be a reminder that just pops up sometimes. They can run background processes. They can help you build habits, or they could just add a bit of fun to your daily life. Even if you're showing games at an expo, perhaps, you could get something out from screensavers even in that regard. But to start off with, time to make a screensaver. The gist of it is that in Windows, screensavers are just portable executables. So a lot of things are in Windows, like there are different extensions for portable executables and different purposes for them. But the gist is that renaming an exe to an SCR will just work. And now, if you follow along with me, we can take the exe you prepped earlier. In my case, it's something I made for the purpose of being a screensaver a while ago. It's a Godot project that opens one random scene, and I put some GLSL shaders in there that render pretty images. And when you click any button, it quits the exe. Now, if I rename it to .scr, Windows will warn me that this might be a bad idea. However, it is still running when I click on it, and it'll just launch a different scene because there's a few of them and it randomizes which one it is. And you might notice in the type that it says that its format is a screensaver. Now, the thing you need to do to be able to set it as your screensaver, and you can open the screensaver settings by opening Change Screensaver or just typing screensaver into your Windows search bar. Files that show up here, they just need to be in your C Windows System 32 folder. That's it. So if I just drag it in here, and this will require admin permissions, close this and reopen it, I can now choose Kaleidoscope Shaders as a screensaver, and it'll run as a screensaver. There are a few caveats, but the basics of it is this, and that's kind of all you need to do the most simple basic version of it. You can also turn on the option to display the logon screen after the screensaver is run for security purposes, which will just do the equivalent of hitting Windows L and locking your laptop to kind of like the lock screen where you have to type in your password to unlock it. That part I've used while showing Essentia Omnia at Next Gen Showcase, or no, at Level Up, where if you set it as a screensaver, basically just renaming the game's exe to an SCR, then putting it in the folder, and then it could just be selected. And what this means is I tried basically to find the way to set up kiosk mode on my laptop, because I didn't want people to just be able to access all of my files in my personal laptop that has everything I do on it. And that was kind of the way to make the game run and be playable, but at the same time, if the game ever crashed, or if someone pressed Alt F4 or tried to Alt Tab out of it, they wouldn't be able to actually reach like any of my files. I know it's kind of paranoid, but that gave me a lot of peace of mind, and it was a very easy solution for that. Also, this is obviously not perfect. Real screensavers that you can like find special made for that purpose are a little bit more complex than that, and there's a few details there. But the ones that were made in the Paradise collab were all made exactly this way. If you look at the site for the Paradise collab, you can see that there's some that were made in Pico 8, there were some that were made in Unity, some that were made in GameMaker and Love 3D. All of them just work in the end, and we made a launcher for it, which is actually just a screensaver that launches an exe, scr, or bat in a file in your documents folder for ease of access, since you don't have to keep stuffing more screensavers into your already full Windows 32 folder. But it really is as simple as that. It's mostly about the format and what you do with it. I want to talk about some of the caveats with this, because obviously it's not perfect. The screensavers that you make this way are not going to quit on their own. You can add that in the game engine of choice by adding if there's any input or the mouse is moved, you quit the game. Or you could add some interactivity. It could be a fully fledged game where it quits after you do something specific, or there's other things that you could come up with there. Also, they will not be transparent, and we tried, and unfortunately it will not work. And also, it's not going to be as easy on other OS. Also, regarding them not quitting on their own, if you use just any other application that didn't account for that, you can always just Alt F4. That's the easiest solution probably. The transparency part is, I think was broken by just Windows updates not checking that specific part of backwards compatibility. If you look up Bubbles screensaver, one of the auto completion results is Bubbles screensaver broken, not transparent, not working, and the same happens to all of the other ones that we had in the launcher. So if you launch them normally, as by double clicking, right now, it'll still work. It'll perfectly fine. I think this one specifically tried to solve that by taking a screenshot, putting that as the background, and then drawing on top of that. But the problem is that when you actually time it out and wait for the screensaver trigger, I think they do some optimization stuff where it doesn't render anything else behind it and doesn't account for that, and kind of launches after the background is already not being drawn. So you just end up with the transparent screensavers on top of a dark background, or background of your Windows color preference choice. On other OS, it is going to be a little harder to make screensavers, but there are still ways. If you're on Mac or Linux, you can use X Screensaver. It's been around since a very long time, I think since last century even, last millennium. And it's available for all platforms except for Windows, because the author has a personal vendetta against Microsoft for killing Netscape Navigator. But if you're using it, it's gonna have the option to make screensavers in C and C++. It has a lot of examples included with it, and there's a comprehensive hacking guide and where to start. And you can just take things that are already in there and modify them. I think there's also one example for OpenGL rendering in there, but I'll talk about that in a bit. On Linux, that's pretty much your only option. I think it can run anything that you can run through terminal, kind of how you can put anything into Windows in this situation, with one exception. It needs to render to a specific window ID that is provided to it in the launch command, and I believe if you don't do that, then it just covers the screen with its screensaver like window, and then nothing gets rendered to it. So everything that your program would have done after it runs is still happening, but nothing is displayed to the screen. So it still works if you want to do something more practical or just have some background tasks running. And yeah, without the window ID, it's just going to be black. For macOS, it is a little bit similar. You can do basically the same trick as with Windows, where you just take a application folder that has an app extension, you rename it to Saver, you put it into your library screensavers folder, and it just works. You can select it, it'll run. The problem is you'll get a black screen. Whatever it does will still be happening, but you won't see any of it. Actually, if you're on Mac and you want to do this for some background processes, you can just make a script in Automator that launches terminal and launches something in terminal, then to export that into an app, and then do that. And also for macOS, there's Script Saver, which is a Bodge tool kind of that runs in AppleScript when it runs and when it closes. And this is intended for various maintenance tasks, and there's a screensaver that you can run in the middle, as instead of this one. There were some bodges to fix it with a transparent screensaver that just shows whatever's behind it, so you could use this to like show something of your own, but I think they were all broken a few years ago in an update. If you want to do things the proper way on Apple, you can also just use Xcode, and there's a screensaver preset in it, and it can be used as a desktop, as a live wallpaper on your desktop, and it just has to implement a few methods that they have on their documentation, and then it'll be able to actually render to that black screen. But unfortunately, that's how it is on Apple. And if you're on Android, there's Daydreams. Daydreams you can find in settings, display, screensaver, and there's I think colors and a clock by default. You can find them on Play Store. They can be installed on Android TVs also. I have no idea how to develop them. I haven't checked that, and it's probably going to be a situation that is very similar to how it is on Mac. One thing I forgot to mention while recording this initially is that on Windows, it should technically recognize some launch parameters, which would make it not run when you just select it in the list. When you select it in the list, it runs without any parameters, which is kind of the same as just running it, which is why it would be shown twice, I think, normally, because it would be selected here and then would try to render here. Here it should preview the screensaver as a child of window, and it should render it to a specific window ID, kind of like how it is on X Screensaver. The settings just is when it's run with a C, and if the Windows is serious about running it, it'll do a /S for previews and for just running it normally when it's timed out. If you don't do this, it doesn't have a negative impact. It just makes your screensaver launch a number of extra times when you're digging through screensaver settings. Inconvenient, but I feel like it's a lot more in the spirit of messing around and just not caring and making a thing as long as it's done, rather than finishing a full-on project that can be adhere to all the Windows specifications. In the next section, I'm also going to be talking about how to turn pretty much anything on Windows, not just EXEs, into a screensaver, and use it for that purpose. And for that, I'll be using AutoEdit, which is a free and basically it's free. It's very simple. It's been used for many years. It's quite well documented, and it's lightweight. If you want to download and install, you can do it now. I'm not sure you're going to be able to follow that part, but if that's something that interests you, this is the one. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the different stages of interacting with one and why I think it's interesting. But before that, I'd like to mention that this talk is pre-recorded. I unfortunately can't see your messages and what's happening in the chat. But if you have an idea for a screensaver at any point in this talk, please share it. Don't let it die in your head. If you say it and someone makes it, that's awesome. Inspire, and get inspired by each other. And screensavers haven't been profitable for over a decade now. Nobody's gonna get rich off your ideas. We're just here to have fun and make silly software. And if there's more silly software in the world, I think that would be good in general. The most interesting part about screensavers, I think, is the format for making things is the structure of how you interact with them. So with a normal game, the player thinks, I want to play a game. Then they launch the game, they play it, and then they quit. With a screensaver, it's very different because the player thinks, I'm done doing what I was doing at the computer, I'm gonna take a break. And then they leave without ever thinking about it. Then it launches, and then someone else who might be near them, near the computer, sees it first and goes, oh, something is happening over there, interesting. After that, the player at some point returns back to their computer, notices it, goes, that thing that I didn't even think about starting right now. Might look at it for whatever reason, and after they interact with it in any way, it'll quit, or they can interact with it and play it for a bit, and then quit. And a screensaver always leads into whatever the player was thinking about doing on the computer while they were returning to it. So it always leads into their previous plans of work or whatever they were planning to do. So to summarize, the interesting part is that it's not launched consciously. Computer is entirely idle this entire time and nothing's usually happening, or it doesn't need to be performant at that time. It's usually seen by other people first. It's not something that is planned by the player, but it is intentional. So you have to set it first. And it is always followed by whatever was planned to be done afterwards. Some uses for that, as you might imagine, would be to make something that just makes you smile when you return to your computer, or to make things that are happening every so often and you would like to be reminded of them. You can play a prank on someone by setting something to a screensaver, but I'll return to that later. I think the pranks should be within good fun and within limits. It could be used for inducing a state of mind before returning to your work or whatever you were doing. It could be used for idle computer maintenance, or just doing idle and boring things, which, if you ran them normally, would just lag your computer and you would sit there and be like, damn, I can't do anything right now, I guess I'll just leave. But now you're not here, so you can just do that in the meantime. If any of those ideas sound like something you would like to add to your life, or that you would benefit from running whatever you have for that, this part is about how to make literally anything into a screensaver. So again, the Automate, usually the software is used to automate installation of things and just general busy work, but it is also just a pretty easy scripting language, and for this purposes I think it's perfect. They have a few examples in their thing, but first I'll talk about the aspects of just launching a screensaver. Again, the player is not present when it happens, so whatever janky way you have of starting your screensaver, if it's sluggish, if it's messy, if it's awkward, it doesn't matter, because the player's not going to see it. It won't impact their experience, so you don't really have to care about this part. Also, the computer is going to be idle, so if it runs very poorly, if it needs time to warm up, if it uses other computer resources, that's also okay. The computer's not in use. And it's going to have some time to warm up before it's seen, so you don't have to worry about load times that are under a minute long even, most of the time, as long as it's obvious that something's happening. In this case, I'm going to be showing how to transform a demo that Paloma made for some kind of demo competition. The problem is, when I try to do that, as soon as I launch the exe, it shows the configuration of the Unity player. This cannot be removed with launch parameters or arguments, and I want to have this thing as a screensaver. And also, when I click anything, it doesn't quit because it wasn't made for that. The solution is use AutoIt in this case. You can do that by right-clicking after you installed it, creating new AutoIt script, and it's going to let you create a script. I already have one that does what I need, but I'll comment out all the parts that aren't needed in this case and walk through them step by step. AutoIt ships with a lot of examples of what it can be used for, but you can find them in its installation folder. For example, this one is a calculator one. You can run a script by right-clicking it, hitting run, or compiling it, and it's going to produce an exe that's like 1 megabyte in size usually. So if we run this one, it'll open calculator. The calculator will calculate numbers until 1024, and then quit. And that's all it does. And if we edit the script, we can see that there's some stuff happening. But to simplify, we don't need this part. We don't need this part. We don't need the message box. We don't need the modal for the checking the answer. We need the run calculator. And after this, it just waits for the calculator to activate by checking that the correct class of window is open. Then it sets the key delay, so the keys don't type immediately. It activates the window where the calculator is. It basically types the string that is expected to give the correct answer step by step by just sending the string. It just presses the buttons on your keyboard as if you were there. Then it asks it to stay active, waits for a few seconds, and then it closes. That's it. It's a very simple language, and what I like about it is because it actually has practical uses in real world. It's been very thoroughly documented and discussed. So if you look around for, like, if you search up AutoIt window, wait for window, or AutoIt, say like change volume, you can just type in your questions with AutoIt and a plain text question, and you'll get something that'll probably fit your situation. So here, the documentation for the script is very well written, I think, very clear, and it comes up as your first search result, so you're gonna have no problems. I'll talk about the actual example in this case. So for this, in our case, it runs the application by finding it in the folder that is adjacent to the current one. This will not work if after compiling the script you move it to your System32 without the folder. If you want to just move the compact SCR file and keep the files that are needed to run it elsewhere, you can do that by copying the path, I guess, and putting it here. It should work because now it's the full path to the exe on my disk instead of just being like the relative one. Then it waits for the window to activate with the configuration for it. The way to know which window to wait for is by getting the AutoIt window info tool. Using this thingy, hovering over it, it shows the title and the class of the window. The class, this number is usually used for actually like a lot of windows that happen to pop up from it's like in context of other applications, I think. So I wouldn't count on that, but the title of C2 Visual's configuration is pretty foolproof in our case, so you can just use that. Then after the window with this title is active, it sends an enter, because by default in that window the play key is already highlighted. If it wasn't, and it was a different kind of launcher, you could navigate to it with arrow keys by sending something like up. The letter keys, I think, are just letters. WinWait active waits for the actual game, which is the same name as the configuration, but without the configuration part. This just pauses the program, and the things after that won't happen until the window is active. And this part is not necessary, so I'll comment it out and show what it does in the current version. Now if we run the script, no, that's not the script, that's the exe. If we save the script, right click it, and hit run, what will happen is the window will immediately close and the thing will run in one click. Awesome, now it's ready to be done and made into a screensaver. But we can make it better. If we add this part here, which will just enter an infinite loop where it sleeps for 20 milliseconds, and then waits for the mouse to be pressed, or for the window to stop existing. It'll keep cycling in this loop. If you do this, do not increase the sleep time because it's not going to impact your performance at all, but it might make it so that your mouse presses get ignored, and then it's just going to be a little annoying. If this part about the window not existing isn't included, it's gonna keep spinning in here, and after that point it might try to either close a non-existing window or it will stay here forever. And the problem with this is it won't like impact your performance, it'll just be a dead process that makes it you're unable to delete or remove the exe or scr that you have in there. This part just closes the project if it exists, and if it doesn't, because it will quit for whatever other reason, it just goes, oh, okay, and closes the application so it doesn't keep running forever. And now if we run it, and I run the script, it will open the game, it will run, and when I click with my mouse, it will close. Awesome. So now I can just hit compile script. It'll think for a little bit, spit out a thing, can be renamed into an SCR, and it'll just work. Once again, you can take it and put it into your System32, it'll work. It's the same as before. Another example that's a little more complicated is the same author has made another game in Unity that is of a similar type. The don't run is I call that because that's kind of a thing we did in Paradise Launcher, where exes that had that prefix wouldn't be run, so they could be run with other tools. It has the same thing where it requires you to like skip the intro sequence, but then the part about this one is that by pressing letters on your keyboard, you can change which one it opens, the scenes that are included with it. Obviously, if I wanted to use it as a screensaver, I would want to have all of the scenes on shuffle. So what the script for it does is it does the same thing as before. It waits for the game window to activate, and here's replaced by a variable because game window name is used like 4 times, and that would just get annoying to change if anything ever happened, or if I wanted to reuse this for another app. And here it just waits for the window to activate, waits for 10 seconds because I can't know when exactly it's done loading past the Unity logo and into a scene where it's ready to receive my inputs, but my laptop usually is done with that in about 10 seconds, so I just know that for my case, this works. And then it sends a string mid of QWERTY opus, which string mid means it selects a 1-letter long substring of this string starting at a random position from 1 to 12. So it just selects a letter and then sends that, which is the equivalent of pressing it. If you wanted to do something with other letters or other stuff, you could use an array if because then like you can send an enter key or something like that as a single key press. And then it also does the same thing, waits for it to close or waits for you to press a mouse and closes it. With this, you can pretty much do anything as a screensaver, and in fact, literally anything you can run from PowerShell or from just terminal in Windows, you could also do with any kind of launch commands. If you're going to be doing this with Unity games that other people made, you can also check the player command line arguments. Out of them, I think the only one you need to really care about is the one that forces full screen to be on, because this way you can... it was somewhere here. Yeah, full screen, which makes it so that apps which weren't made to be a full screen screensaver can still be run like that. And yeah, basically you can make literally anything you have, including a website, any kind of script, any kind of file extension, into a screensaver that'll launch when you're away from your computer. The other part that I'd like to mention is the aspect of a screensaver where other people see it first, and actually they probably see more of it than you do. Because when you return, you usually have some kind of thing to do, you close it. So the main audience for them is actually people around you, if you're in an environment where that's possible. And I think that may have played a massive role in why After Dark and screensavers just became popular in office culture at the time that they did in the late 90s. Yeah. And actually there's a lot of them because they got popular to the point where they were commercially viable. So a lot of screensavers got made, and there's a lot of them out there. You can just go on the internet and look them up, and if you download one of the packs that includes all of them, I can guarantee you're not going to see them all in one day because there's just too many of them. They're actually available on Internet Archive, and some of them you can play online, just see in their original context, emulated. And there are also even versions that you can download. But while they're loading, I'd also like to talk about the fact how desk toys, when I think about them, are kind of a bit adjacent to screensavers in that they're also frivolous and lighthearted things that are present in the office and are intended as a fun and playful distraction in measured amounts interspersed in your regular work. And it's something to do while or after you're taking a break. And it's also something that's kind of partially intended for other people around you to enjoy passively. However, I think desk toys are actually kind of closer to desktop pets because they can actually be picked up and put down whenever you feel like, and screensavers are more of a thing that only happens when you leave for a break, whatever reason. And yeah, Johnny Castaway is one of the originals that has been beloved and still fondly remembered, where there's just a guy stuck on an island and he tries to survive, moves around, does various stuff, fishes, hijinks happen to him. He never escapes. But such is the life of Johnny. After Dark, you can just play all of them here. It's not the most buttery smooth experience, but there's also just playlists on YouTube where you can see them. And the amount of inspiration that you can get from them, it's kind of insane because they're out of the canon, but there's so much variety in them. And they're all in a format where you're not really interacting with them, but there's interesting systemic stuff still happening. So if you're just making games, this is something to look at. About the taking a break part, After Dark later did a lot of spin-offs of their screensavers, merch, other stuff, but among them is After Dark games, which are games that are intended to be played in a coffee break. All of them are very short arcades or just puzzles or things that you can kind of play and be done with in the span of 1 to 3 minutes, based off of their original characters from their screensavers. It's kind of wild. There's an After Dark cinematic universe, including various games. All of them are kind of united by the fact that the maximum playtime of them is very segmented, so you always have you're never locked into a long play session, and they're specifically made for that. And they launch fast, and they're even, I think, in the Windows tray by default. Yeah, if any of that sounds like in any way inspiring, and you would like some kind of screensaver to put on your desktop, not even maybe necessarily an entire application, if it's just a reminder or if it's just something that makes you happy, then you'll be surprised to find that there are easier ways to do it. Screensavers Planet is a pretty good resource. Their slogan is true, it's free screensavers, and they're virus free also. But besides screensavers, you might want to look at the software part, because they have things that let you make screensavers out of images, videos, slideshows, various utilities, and managers which let you have multiple screensavers or playlists or cycle through them. Kind of like what we did for Paradise, but it's a more general tool for general purpose use and less specific than our case. I'm gonna even make a web page a screensaver. I believe there's some on Screensavers Planet that were like that, but I've also found this repository that's already basically done and ready, where you can just download the screensaver from the releases, set it from settings, and you'll have a web window open in your browser as a screensaver. There's a lot of things that could be an interesting page to return to on a regular basis. If you're looking for something that's just passively pretty on your computer and not necessarily only when you return after a while, there's Wallpaper Engine for live wallpapers. But I'd like to note that live wallpapers and screensavers and generative art in general kind of occupy slightly different niches, because live wallpapers are almost always high-res videos that play on a short, perfectly cycling loop. They're just like animate a static image a little. And screensavers and generative art and systemic stuff is interesting for entirely different reasons, where it's things that are unpredictable, that are rendered live and are different every time. However, there are ways to unite the two. There's a Wallpaper Engine add-on that lets you set a shader toy file as your background. For those unfamiliar, shader toy is a toy and a community of people making shaders that have no other purpose than just kind of looking pretty and being fun to look at for a bit, which unsurprisingly is kind of exactly what screensavers are a lot of the time. So if that piques your interest and you're one of the people who are actually in this community and are just into this, you might want to actually look at OpenGL Screensaver, which basically does the same thing, but instead of being like a web thing, it provides you with all the necessary tools to set a GLSL shader as your screensaver. It's also a already made thing, and you need to swap out the actual file with the shader that's going to run. You're going to be able to do just that. It's significantly more lightweight than what I did in Godot, which uses a similar language to GLSL, except because it's a Godot export, it kind of means that without me optimizing the file, it's like 30 megabytes, and this is going to be much lighter. In my case, I did it for myself, for fun, it didn't really matter. Honestly, use whatever is most comfortable to you. I think the purpose here is to make something that brings you joy while you're making it and after the fact, and forcing yourself to use tools that are uncomfortable instead of the ones that you're familiar with. And unless you're obviously trying to learn them, and this is kind of your motivation for that, would just be against the point. And also, to continue the Shader Toys Wallpaper Engine thing, there is another thing that's a project that's kind of already made that sets the background of the computer to be a shader. It's just an OpenGL shader. It's a project that I think is less hackable than the one they showed before, but you can recompile it and replace the shader, and it should probably still work if that's something you're trying to do. Obviously, in this case, one of the reasons this is not commonly done, and one of the comments in the wallpaper engine thing, is it is less than ideal to have a full screen shader running if it's performance intensive, like a lot of the Shader Toys ones are, and also you're actively using the computer in the meantime, which is, again, why I think that screensavers are one of the best avenues for exporting and like storing and like, enjoying generative art personally, because it allows you to make your computer turn into a generative art display when you're not actually caring about the processing power and the lag that it would cause on other processes in the system. And also, it feels a little weird to me to like actively go out of my way to launch an application that's like rendering something fun and then just stare at it and close at it. And in this case, it's just something that I return to, go, enjoy for as much as I like, and then close. And I think that's a better fit for it. But for generative art, obviously use anything you like. And Paradise, there was used almost anything and everything. Penciler's Gallery is entirely just a normal Pico 8 project. Except it can also be run as a screensaver. In fact, it's a number of them. And I quite enjoy that. They're fun. What else? Oh yeah. Because your computer is not actively in use, your generative art that you use in this context can be as impractically laggy and as impractically like slow FPS to compute as you'd like. In fact, Electric Sheep is so slow that it doesn't even run. It doesn't run in real time. It runs kind of on a distributed network of all the people running the screensaver. When they're running the screensaver, you're rendering the complex like fractal patterns that are shown. Then they're combined, sent back to the server, and then the server distributes the MP4s that are rendered to the people who are running it. So instead of having an intensively like processor intensive thing that you could not possibly run in real time, they kind of crowdsource the processing power and then just share the results. And I think that's really fun. But if that sounds like a kind of frivolous way of spending electricity and people's computing power, you might be interested in BOINC, which is a distributed computing network or framework for different projects. And they've had a number of projects using them, which are mostly scientifically based and just science projects that require a lot of computing power that people can choose to volunteer and donate their computer to when they're not using it. It was also used by Minecraft at Home, which you might have seen on YouTube, where they use this same software but to basically comb through Minecraft seeds. Which I think is very in tune with the rest of it. The reason I'm bringing it up is because they have a few of their projects. They have a screensaver version where it kind of runs when you're away from the computer, and on the screen it just displays a simple graphic showing the stats of how the progress is going so far and what you're currently doing. Also, an interesting part is not just things that render a pretty thing, but entire systems that kind of evolve over time. I think it's fun to make systems that just kind of, you make them and then they play themselves. It is still very adjacent to game design, I believe, and game development in general, where you still design the rules, then you set them in motion, and then you're a part of the audience, observing them and enjoying the results. You can get invested in what's happening and get surprised. If that sounds like something that's up your alley, you might be interested in watching this talk that kind of inspired it all. The Ambient Play Systems talk by Flan Falachi at MA's 2022, last year, where she talks about different types of games that can be played and like actually played just by observing them without any interaction. And it also brings up After Dark as a major inspiration. I believe this video is criminally underrated. I don't know what to say. It doesn't have as much views, and not enough people know about it, even though I keep mentioning it every time, because I think it's awesome, and it is basically the reason why this entire thing happened, and why we started talking about it in Paradise, and why the collab happened, and it's awesome. If any of what I said today is interesting, I think that this is one of the best avenues to explore with screensavers, because it's kind of perfect for that. You just come and you're an observer to this thing that's happening, and it's in a context where you're not compelled to interact, because he didn't start it by interacting with it. Interaction doesn't happen even at the point of launching it. But one example of that we did with Paradise a while ago was Get Whole Garden. And I think it's fun because it kind of arrived at the same conclusion independently. It was like an ambient play system before we saw that talk. And that's because the rationale behind it was it was made with the intention of not needing any interaction at all, and being as slow paced and as low stakes as necessary. It can just be like enjoyed passively with as little interaction as you want. And then you can just observe what happens, and the game kind of plays itself according to the rules. Snails infect things, trees grow, pollinate, throw off seeds, etc. Water spreads. It's an interesting system where a lot of people added their own little parts to it, and it kind of became a fun thing. In fact, I think you could actually turn this into a screensaver and it would work. And it would be quite a good one, I believe. There were other ones in this one, I think, that were kind of like that. Dancers, made by, if I remember, Q1, was made in Love Game, and it's about points. They just kind of spawn, and when they enter each other's radius of attraction, they start gravitating, and then things happen, and they form various patterns, and they move around, and it's just kind of fun to look at for a while. And other ones that are like that, I think, is Battery Acid by AppLove, which not exactly an ambient play system. It's an adaptation of this that plays itself. And you can come and watch this guy try and sometimes even fail the run repeatedly, which is very fun. I'm rooting for the little guy. The robot doesn't always win. That's, I think, what makes it best. Some other inspirations from this, which isn't exactly like genre of art at this point, but I just really like to mention it, is Plaster. Plaster, I think, is just awesome. It's a screensaver that takes whatever's in your clipboard, made by Dwest. It launches, it takes your clipboard, and then it displays whatever's in it. If it's an image, it'll put it in a fancy display ways, and anyone who's around is gonna know what was in your clipboard. That's kind of the agreement that you enter by installing it. It's very upfront about it, that your clipboard will probably be exposed if you do this, and whatever that entails is up to you. If you keep your password in your clipboard, then that's probably gonna be seen by other people as well. I also have, yeah, that's about it about the generative art. But generally, whatever way of making generative art is the most pleasant to you, you should do that. I think that as long as you're making it, good. And if you can enjoy it after the fact, that's awesome. And if other people can enjoy it after the fact, that's even better. Other ideas wise, you can do basically anything that an app can do. You can read people's files, you can visualize them, you can move them around, you can make something that's just special made for this format, where it's something that you encounter and then do something with, and then it's over and you're back to whatever you were doing. You can play with the fact that it's kind of an intrusion into your life in some way. You could even connect to the internet, like the radio bubble me and Bren made a while ago. I think would also be kind of perfect for it. It is more of a desktop pad in its current format, but it is a small thing that just kind of is around, and it shows messages from people who sent them once a day max. Just random messages from strangers from around the world. Kind of don't usually know what to expect. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Please be good. Hi. It's nice. A lot of these messages are very nice. I'm glad that people are nice on the internet. That was not the expectation initially, but we had to do surprising little moderation. Once again, a lot of inspiration can be gleaned from just the screensavers that already exist and that have been recorded and stored in some way. Also, X Screensaver has a massive selection of them. I think those are notably a lot more demo scene like, but there's just a lot of screensavers that you can just look at and take inspiration from and make something entirely new. One thing that X Screensaver's developer mentioned that I think is funny is to resist the urge to make a clock as your first screensaver. But I think after seeing all this, you're gonna have no problems with that at all, because it can literally be anything. That's, I think, the magic of it. You have the entire power of game making, of anything that your computer can do, and it's all here. Just explore the possibility space, all the tools that are already made for it. Yeah. Even you can make not necessarily even just exes. This one I made entirely in the out-it script thing, where this is the entire thing. That's all it does. When you run it, it opens a notepad and types something to this end in it, and when you close it, it jump scares you. If you say yes, it jump scares you again until you say no. But that's about it. The main problem, I guess, with the ability to use anything that an application can use is trust. If screensavers were kind of notorious for being the thing you get a virus from for a bit, and it's justified. It's literally an app that you put in your System32, and if it's from an untrusted source, you probably shouldn't be doing that. And if you're making a screensaver that's messing with people's files or does anything that's kind of pranking them in a way that's not in good conscience, I think you have to be very honest and explicit up front about it, and it's non-seen when it's launched. It can't harm your computer. Any pranks should be cleared ahead of time and be harmless, or else you're just making a virus or giving someone a bad time. We're not here for that. We're here to have a silly fun time. And that's pretty much it. A lot of demo scene stuff also is a good fit for screensavers, where it's just you make a little thing that's pretty and cool, and that's kind of the end of it. That's kind of what screensavers are. They're just a cool thing your computer can run, and that's about it. It doesn't have to be productive. It doesn't have to be a game. You don't even have to look at it. Just do fun things on its own. That's pretty much it. I'd like to thank Hentai Society for organizing this, Max Delbada for the technical help with it, Paradise for being an awesome community and the support with the screensavers and all this project, and you for your attention and anything that you make as a result. I'd be delighted to know if anyone actually makes more screensavers because of this, because my goal is to not really get them back into the zeitgeist, but if you can make games, you can make things that add silliness to your computer in smaller doses as well. So why not do that? Same skills, and even practice one with the other. It's awesome. But that's about it. Make cool stuff and be nice to each other, and don't make screensavers a virus threat once again. Antiviruses still scream at the Paradise screensaver launcher because of that. So honestly, if it just runs an exe on your computer, it could be anything. It is very screensaver, or it is very virus shaped. Freudian slip on my part. Anyway, that's it. Be nice to each other, and bye.
She's a princess. We're supposed to save her. You're supposed to slay her, or she'll go on to destroy everything. Do you not understand what everything means?
You poor thing. We both know this isn't you.
See? She's not a monster. She pries the blade from your infuriatingly rigid hands.
I'll try to make it quick.
What is she? She plunges it into your chest, tearing through flesh and sinew, but failing to hit anything vital.
Oh no! I'll try again. I'm sorry.
You collapse to the floor, blood pooling in the cavity she carved into your torso. She leans over you, tears leaving pink streaks down her cheeks.
I wish it didn't have to end like this.
But it's too late to think of how things could have gone differently. Everything goes dark, and you die.
I see you have returned to me. Days mean nothing in the maw of forever. I never left your side.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it. Actually, I wasn't even sure anyone would see it. Well, Cher and York isn't a very common pairing. I think they're the best, but I guess that's just me. Okay. Yeah, that'd be nice, actually. It's nice to meet you. Man, even back then, she was just so cute.
Who goes there?
Just a lone traveler, looking for a warm place to spend time with company.
Do you have a name, lone traveler?
Call me Nameless. That's what everyone calls me here.
Yeah, Yuri is very convincing. My family and I aren't Japanese, but I appreciate living in a place where its people go above and beyond to care for one another. And I love how connected everyone is.
Mm-hmm.
By doing good for our community and others, I like to think I'm creating a future I want my daughters to grow up in.
Tough, isn't it? Having to narrow down what's most precious to you with such little warning. So. You know,
go!
Please.
Let the debate begin!
On the floor, got a 30-point lead and a minute left. Queens on the team in real life, not just on the internet. We working hard for the top spot, just watch it manifest. I'm a rose and a king at the same time, that's what a woman is. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we want and we can do it. All straight, we ain't stopping, believe me. Go straight till the morning, no lie, we won't wait. And we're taking everything we want and we can do it. All straight, no sweat. 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 All straight.
Well, that's the end of today's Super Festival show. While you were watching, I was trying to build my own arcade stick. You think this might be FGC ready? Thank you all for tuning in to Super Festival. I hope you enjoyed all the amazing games and perspectives shared today. Of course, we're not done yet. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. to showcase even more games and amazing guests. In the meantime, make sure you check out the Super Festival website to explore over 50 awesome indie games, as well as connect with other people in the evolving Super Festival hub world. You can also support the Hand-Eye Society by checking out our website and signing up for our workshops, memberships, Discord, and our free newsletter. We're also a nonprofit, so we're happy to take any donations so we can keep doing what we do. Additionally, once again, thank you to Ontario Creates, the Toronto Arts Council, the Ontario Arts Council, Clever Endeavor, Mighty Yell, and Bansico for your support. We hope you enjoyed today, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow to enjoy the next chapter of Super Festival. Take care, everyone. Bye.